Welcome to Free Fiddle Lessons. This is going to be a tutorial about jig bowing. We're going to use the Steamboat Quickstep as an example, our tune from last release, and talking about a couple of different things. Because I get commonly asked, how do I make the tune sound like I'm playing the fiddle instead of like I'm just playing notes? And a lot of it has to do with the bow and how you're using the bow and which notes you're accenting. So the start of the Steamboat Quickstep uses a very common jig pattern, which is a quarter note followed by an eighth note, followed by a quarter note, followed by an eighth note. And that makes that kind of classic gallop rhythm. And this is very, very common in jigs. If you'll notice, whatever amount of bow I'm using, I'm going down down one amount and up the same amount, even though they're taking different amounts of time. So the down bow is longer in time, but the same in distance of the bow. So to make that up bow just as long and faster without crunching it, you have to be quite light on the up bows, and often I end up lifting and getting some air underneath my bow. So it's almost like I'm actually playing the down bow and then about halfway back up on an up bow and then lifting the rest of the way. Try to make that clearer to see. And I often am kind of biting with the bow on both of those strokes. And that little crunch is also a very characteristic fiddle sound, used a lot to make emphasis on certain notes. So to do that, I'm pressing with my pointer finger, almost not so the stick touches the hair, but close here by the frog. And then as I start to move the bow, I release that pressure. And I got a little pop. If I don't release the pressure, I get that. And if I don't put pressure on it, I just get a plain bow without accenting. So I'm pressing with my pointer finger down on the bow and then releasing. And you can also do this on an up bow. You have to sometimes press a little harder if you're further from the frog because you need more weight. So back to the bowing here. And rhythmically we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my first recommendation is to find a jig, figure out what key it's in, and play that note along with the jig, and just play ba 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 ba. So you could do A for the Steamboat Quickstep and play along just that rhythm. Now in the tune, we get that in the first measure. So I'm using that same bowing pattern of equal length bows, but a strong one and then a strong kind of light airborne up bow. I sound like I'm talking about airplanes or something. Right at the beginning. And that gives you nice strong 1 and 3, which is going to be a characteristic that we're talking about the rest of the time here too. Once you sort of get that, the other really common pattern rhythmically is straight eighth notes for a measure, which sounds like this. And for a long time I taught people to do a long down bow and then sort of an in place and then a long up bow and in place, which makes a very strong 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's okay, but I've come to realize that I don't actually use that bowing very much. That really accents the downbeat, which is an important beat to accent, but I've realized that I also really like to emphasize the 3 and the 6 of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or I tend to think of it as just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. So just on A, that would sound like this. And you can hear how the middle note is almost whispered. You don't want to lose it entirely, and sometimes I think I err a little too much on the side of lightness on that middle note. But so how I'm achieving this is by doing a half bow, a little tiny up bow, the half bow is down, a little tiny up, and then the other half of the down bow. And then I reverse it. I do half an up bow, a little tiny down, and then that's very light, and then the other half strong on the up bow. So it's down, light, down, up, light, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Down, little, down, up, little, up. And this is another pattern you could just practice along with a jig. And you can hear it sort of makes it sound like this. There's just like the ghost of another note in there. But we accomplish it a little bit differently in terms of our bow distribution. A mnemonic that's been the one I've found so far is to say like sauerkraut, 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 sauerkraut. And that gives you sort of the emphasis on the syllables that you want. It's a little bit goofy, but it works. Sauerkraut, sauerkraut, sauerkraut. So, in the tune Steamboat Quickstep, a great place to practice that is on the scale that goes down, which happens both in the A part and the B part. So it starts on high A, the scale, and the notes just go down, 6 notes down the scale. That wasn't great intonation on my part. So now to do that with the bowing, we have a down, little up, the other half down, and then open E is going to be up halfway, little, and the other half up. Let's do that again. So it's down, little, down, up, little, up. And so the A and F sharp and E and the C sharp are the accented notes. You can practice this a lot. So that is something that I use, pretty universally, I think, in all kinds of different sorts of jigs. I thought at first I did it just in smooth jigs, and then I realized that I totally do it in something like the Steamboat Quickstep that's much bouncier as well. And just really provides a lift that if you're just emphasizing the downbeat, the dancing gets heavy. And if you can emphasize some of the offbeat as well, that lifts the dancers. So those are the main patterns that I use. There's a few other things. Sometimes you get a mix of rhythmic sounds is really nice. So there's a bunch of ways to handle like these 6/8 notes in a row. One of them we've just looked at. Another one is to do like the down bow portion of that, and then up bow slur. Obviously, if those last 3 notes were all E's, that wouldn't work so well. That would be awkward. So then I wouldn't choose that bowing for that spot. But when it's all different notes, you can do kind of anything you want. So it would be half, little, half, and then the whole bow back. And you could also do that reversed. It doesn't make sense in this part of the tune, but in other places it could make sense to do down bow slur. And then half, little, half. Actually, I like that better than I thought I would. So that was down bow slur, and then half, little, half on the up bow. Another one I use a lot is more even, a big down bow, and then up bow slur for the next two notes. And the same pattern, down bow, up bow slur. So that sounds like this. And all these just have slightly different sounds, so it's nice to be able to mix the rhythms up. Another kind of funky one that I really like, I don't use it super often, but I definitely do use it, is kind of dividing the measure in groups, in threes rather than in two, but that's maybe more technical than you need to think about. I do two single bows, and then a down bow slur, and an up bow slur. And it's kind of jagged and extra offbeaty. So that next bit of the tune would be something to look at. There we've got a mix of eighth notes and a quarter note eighth. So it's eighth, 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 quarter, eighth. And the bowing that I usually use for that is sort of like the main bow, down with the half, little half, and then up bow slur, which takes us all the way back. You could also do down, up, down, up. That's nice too. And it's a little more offbeaty. So big down bow and then big up bow. Let's see. Something else that you might encounter is that rhythm the other way around. So starting with the quarter and the eighth. If you were to make a variation of the B part rather than going and just playing, that's one option. And so what I did for bowing there is down, up, and that up bow crosses strings, that slur. Down, up, down, and each of those bow strokes is using the same amount of bow. You have to go a little slower and lighter with the slur to get a good sound. Then let's see, at the ending we have another common thing, which is the 3 eighth notes and a dotted quarter. And I would just bow that back and forth. And I would do the beginning like we've been doing, half, little, half. I suppose you could also slur it like slur, slur, but that's more awkward. I don't think I would do that. I don't think I would do that either. I think I would do what I showed you at first, which is down, up, down, up. That's pretty much the kinds of bowing patterns that I use most of the time in jigs. I hope you find this helpful.